Well, we all knew this was coming. It was forewarned after the abysmal book of Boba Flop. Obi-Wan Kenobi was probably the last true vestige of hope for creative incentive down the line for Star Wars projects helmed by Disney. Yet somehow the piles and piles of reactions, feedback, responses, retort, backlash, and criticism received for the poorly executed projects as of late didn't really seem to be enough to garner Disney putting in more effort and serving a better product to their consumers. I really tried to be as objective as possible, forcing myself to watch until the series is complete to get my overall perspective. Yet, here I am 5 episodes in writing this script because, frankly, enough is enough, man. To be honest, Obi-Wan Kenobi is not a terrible venture. At least not in the same sense of his predecessor Boba Fett ended up being. It was blatantly obvious, at least to me it was, the lack of freaking direction. As much as I resisted making episodic reviews like every other YouTuber who watches Disney Star Wars content, I didn't want to prejudge before taking in everything so that the consumers responded in,
"You didn't watch everything yet."
And even if I decided to, it would be pointless because with every episode I watched, I just didn't know where this was going. I mean, at this point, disregarding established and fan-preferred canon, bad acting, and lackluster development is nothing new to Star Wars universe. What else can they drop the ball on here? Oh yeah. Okay then, let's do it.
What?
Before I start picking apart this series for the good and bad, I'm going to have to address the damn elephant in the room. Everyone with an internet connection or a bird account likely is aware of the controversy concerning actress Moses Ingram, who portrays Reva in the show. A while back, she had an interview speaking about representation in Star Wars, and then the geniuses at Lucasfilm inflated the situation by publicly saying she should prep herself for a slew of hate and racist comments. So if you don't want her to be targeted by hateful individuals, why put an even bigger target on her by making the statement, giving more fuel to the trolls and idiots prior to the premiere of the show? I can understand where they were trying to give her a heads up in a way to protect her ahead of time, but this did more harm than unexpected. Have you ever witnessed a bigot being confronted about their discrimination take it well? Ever? Better yet, ever witnessed someone wrongly accused take it well either? I didn't think so. Why would it make sense to add fuel to the fire before it was lit and then continue to fan it way after? In the same breath, Star Wars, Disney, and The Phantom Menace don't have the squeakiest clean record of being in the right, especially in the avenue of racial discrimination. Now granted, Star Wars was created by a white man in a time where American racism wasn't so covert as it is nowadays. So do things like racial discrimination ever surprise me in a fictional universe that are created by, represented by, and densely populated by humans devoid of hue? No. I can hear it now.
Sleven, how can you call Star Wars racist when there have been non-white characters on screen?
Yeah, I've seen your little hors d'oeuvre menu of color folk in live action Star Wars, and it's a bit insulting. While I never truly cared about representation in an environment that doesn't really serve my community, this compilation of characters just proves the statement that Star Wars is not as diverse as it claims to be. A wide collection of alien species with different hue and textures amongst those in the same species, but when it comes to the humans, let's only add a pinch of seasoning. We'll drop a Lando here for representation, then 20 years later give us a Mace Windu, a Captain Panaka. Oops, too much blackness. Let's replace him with Typho in the next film, a Jango Fett, and an army of his clones that never remove their helmets. That'll do it. Diversity. You're the same companies that allowed China to diminish the exposure of a titular character like Finn on the Force Awakens poster. Same companies that gave their diverse cast no development in the sequel trilogy. Same companies that almost greenlit a video game diminishing the ethnic makeup of one of the franchise's beloved characters after he was revealed to be non-white. And now the same companies that greenlit a script that labeled a character played by a so-called minority actress.
You came to us from the gutter. All the power in the world can't mask the stench.
Wow. You are the same fan base that alienated an actor because he portrayed a character in mocap to the point they stopped acting and contemplated self-deletion. The same fan base that threw a tantrum when you found out that a stormtrooper had a darker hue of skin. Do I think Star Wars is racist? No. Do I believe that the fandom is problematic? Not entirely. We can't keep ignoring the subset of these groups, both corporate and audience, that are, and they are loud. They also do things like target the actor or actress for the portrayal of what the writers wrote and how they were directed to act, then proceed to make it about their hue or background because they neglected to realize that the companies who hired them are using them to pander and be tokens for revenue. Make irrelevant social media support posts like random black squares and encourage your favorite actors to make bland video responses.
We stand with Moses. We love Moses. And if you're sending her bullying messages, you're no Star Wars fan in my mind. There's no place for racism in this world. And I totally stand with Moses.
Stupid fucking white man.
Anyway, enough lecturing. And if you're still around after this segment, I truly appreciate your patience. Now let's move on to what we truly need to do with this series by giving a proper critique of the product we were provided. As stated before, the show lacks some serious direction and common sense because it was all over the place from the get-go. From inception, this functioned on coincidences and overabundance of edgelord energy. For instance, there's plenty of towns and cities with the name Moss, yet somehow 2 runaway Jedi just happen to be on the same planet with 2 suns, but congregate in Mos Espa. What a coincidence that the Inquisitor who is obsessed with finding Obi-Wan for some odd reason happens to come to Tatooine to find a lesser known Jedi. And then coincidentally runs across and targets Owen, who is familiar with Obi-Wan and Anakin. They're not even trying anymore to make an effort at writing a believable plot these days. I don't really understand why a show called Obi-Wan Kenobi is focusing so much on characters that do not have the name Obi-Wan. I can tell no time was taken to space out the production between Boba Fett and the show, because the criticism for that show would have drastically aided in Obi-Wan's show to not operate with the same lopsided development, specifically with Reva's place in the story being tied to Obi-Wan. Rightly so, but how it was fleshed out was so illogical. Darth Vader and Leia's involvement in the story created more inconsistencies than ever experienced with stories that take place in the timeline between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. To be honest, I think the script had a potential, and didn't really mind that Obi-Wan came into contact with an Inquisitor, toddler Leia, and Darth Vader. It's the execution of it all that sucked monkey balls. Why is it so hard to stay in line with what was written or told before? Leia only knew Obi-Wan by name through Bail Organa's stories of the Clone Wars. So in this show, it doesn't make sense that she knows Ben's actual name is Obi-Wan. In my opinion, she was young enough to have short-term selective memory or be misled about Ben's true identity. Obi-Wan could have still developed a minor relationship or connection rescuing her while protecting his identity and hers by, I don't know, wearing a damn mask? By the end of the 3rd episode, Leia should have been returned to her adoptive parents the same way it happened in episode 6. Obi-Wan separated himself from the underground in order to protect Leia and all those who escaped the Empire's pursuits. While it was adorable to have a mini quick-witty Padme running around thinking she knows everything, she didn't need to be involved in the entirety of the show. I really didn't want to see grown-ass adults being outran by a 2-foot 10-year-old girl multiple times because stranger danger. This could have easily been a short rescue mission that became more complicated for a rusty Jedi Master out of practice. No one was aware that Obi-Wan was on Tatooine for 20 years, and if they did, they kind of didn't live to tell the tale, evidenced by Rebels executing this perfectly with Darth Maul's conclusion. Which leads us to the 3rd sister, Reva, and how they failed her as a potentially memorable character. Again, Poor execution takes center stage here, as Reva's story would have been the best opportunity to make her a worthy antagonist. A surviving youngling who turned to the dark side as a result of trauma caused by Anakin Skywalker in the events of Order 66. Yeah, so she's angry, bloodthirsty, and ambitious to gain more power, and it all makes sense for someone who uses the dark side. Hence the rule of two and why they always end up killing each other to gain more power in the Force. Yet, somehow she was the only person to make a connection between Obi-Wan and Senator Organa? Really? None of the Inquisitors, the Grand Inquisitor, Vader, or Sidious, who also have access to the archives, weren't intelligent enough to make that obvious connection. Adding insult to the injury, she figures out that Vader is Anakin. Okay, cool. But how? Do we get an explanation, flashback, revelation, something hinting as to how she figured out the two most intimate secrets in Star Wars lore? That Anakin is Vader and he has children? I mean, Jocasta Nu, keeper of the archives, found out by accident through a droid that detected Anakin's DNA. So how did Reva do it? Then when she fails to take out Vader, she figures the best way to get back at him is to kill his son, a child he is unaware of. All to have a change of heart because she sees herself in Luke and could not repeat what Anakin did to her as a youngling. Wow. Round of applause. That's some fantastic writing here. Reva's story had potential but was robbed of its tragic momentum, and quite honestly would have been more if she just died in pursuit of Obi-Wan in order to achieve her lifelong goal of revenge. Instead of displaying superhuman survivability from a lightsaber stab twice, when a Jedi Master back then died within minutes from a similar wound. Encountering Darth Vader didn't really strike me as a problem, not until they actually got into a physical altercation. If Vader had been in pursuit and Obi-Wan evaded all his efforts to meet face to face in combat, it would have made way more sense because in A New Hope, Vader literally says upon their encounter,
"When I left you, I was but a learner. Now I am the master."
So do you think in this instance, or in this instance of their meetup, that he would be presumed the learner? Or would it be here at the end of Revenge of the Sith where he literally says,
"This is the end for you, my master."
A simple dialogue that reflected this moment in their lives, when Obi-Wan was a Jedi Master that sat in the High Council, and Anakin was a fledgling Jedi Knight that never took the trials. It falls in line with the statement made in A New Hope when they meet for the first time in ages, and literally for the last. Ironically, Vader's portrayal was likely one of the best things that this show had to offer, especially showcasing his imposing aura, how powerful he is wielding the Force, and his combative genius. But it all fell apart for me when they literally ripped off Rebels with this scene.
Anakin.
Anakin.
Can I just insert how they did the Grand Inquisitor dirty? They obviously didn't take the time to learn from their mistake with Cad Bane, nor took the time to do some research. They got his appearance and speech pattern all the way wrong by making him more human-like instead of the race that he truly is, a Padawan. I'm sure most casual fans would not know who the Padawan are, but I'm sure a lot of them saw Revenge of the Sith. And if they did, then they remember these people. They couldn't even get him nowhere near his look on Rebels. The least they could have done was get his teeth correct. They're not even trying to be original anymore, let alone utilize common sense. There were so many instances in the show where I felt like my intelligence was being insulted. They didn't even try to de-age Hayden in this flashback, and we're supposed to just think that a 20-year-old Anakin has that many wrinkles? Bad and obvious choreography. A mask would have really helped here, and they literally could have just went around the barrier. How did Reva make it to the other side of this one-way tunnel before Leia did? Vader letting Kenobi go even though he can use the Force to part the flames or pull these dum-dums in. Baby Leia resisting Force interrogation with no training. I wonder where they got that horrible idea. What the fuck was that? You have got to be kidding me. Nobody found this strange? How did she have the time to install a virus on her droid? So all this gunfire and they're just slipping through a crowd of people, but stormtroopers are dropping like flies. You know, usually when it's like one or two of these illogical instances, I just pretend like I didn't see anything, but yo, this show is littered with fantastical nonsense. Alright, I'd like to try and conclude this on somewhat of a positive note, because even though there was so much wrong in the show, there were some things that I actually liked. I definitely liked how Ewan McGregor tried to channel the spirit of Alec Guinness. Very evident in his speech pattern and how he walks and strides. Those were some subtle things that I appreciated about his performance. The flashback of a young Obi-Wan and Anakin training and learning lessons, Darth Vader's overwhelming force abilities, pulling and stopping large objects with ease, the fact that there was a female stormtrooper's voice, just to name a few things. But unfortunately, this is all the good that I can think of, and that's pretty sad. For a series that was supposed to be a spin-off film, that was supposed to be a trilogy of films at that, it most definitely lacked the amount of detail and depth that would require it to successfully tie into the canon of the Skywalker saga films. I previously called the Book of Boba Fett mid, but it'll have to fall way below that after watching Obi-Wan's medieval shenanigans. At this point, Star Wars live action is not doing it for me, unless it's The Mandalorian. And trying to incorporate the MCU formula, Disney Star Wars has emulated the end result of WB and DC finding success mainly in their animated projects. If I were Lucasfilm, I would just stick to that formula in the long run. How did you rate the Obi-Wan Kenobi limited series? Engage below in the comment section, and don't forget to drop a like for your boy. If you enjoyed my dissection of Obi-Wan series, go ahead and browse the channel for other Star Wars content already on the channel after subscribing. I'm looking forward to dropping more consistent content and unique video essays for you all as the channel grows. You know the vibes. It's Kaizoku Sleven. Appreciate you.